This is Dr. Warren Vander Hill interviewing Dr. Mohammad Behforouz, distinguished, I'll get the full title in here. This is, of course, for the typist. George and Francis Ball, Distinguished Professor of Chemistry Emeritus. The date is December 2nd, 2004. Mohammad, I want to thank you for agreeing to help me with my project. As I indicated during our conversation yesterday, my standard first question of all the people involved in the project is to ask them if they would tell me a little bit about their background, where they're from, what their education is, and essentially I'd like to have you tell me briefly what the path is that you took to eventually get you to Ball State, and then we'll talk more about your coming to Ball State University.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm honored to be interviewed by you. I think that I should go where I was born and I grew up. I was born in 1935, and this was in a village which is the eastern part of Iran. And the village just had, at that time, I always, going to school, I was counting the number of people, and I remember it was 139 people in the village. And I was born into a family. At that time, I was the eldest, and I had 6 aunts and 2 uncles at that time, and I was the eldest person. I should say, the eldest boy in the family, or the eldest, if you may say, the grandchildren of it. The village is sort of at the time, it didn't have any running water, it didn't have any electricity, and even we didn't have a bicycle in the whole village. And so it was a very remote area of the country, and it is about 40 miles to the west of Afghanistan border, so we are only about 40 miles to the Afghanistan border. Mainly the people in the village, they were doing carpet weaving as well as doing some farming. But in that area, they actually water is scarce, so they're not so much farming. As I grew up in the village, at the time, I should say, which is about 60-some years ago, about half of the men in the village could read and write. And this was a tradition in the village which goes back even 100 years ago. At least half of the people, they could read Quran and they could write also. I mean, mainly the reason was that they could, they were studying Quran, the Bible, and they could also read and write. So the village was a relatively educated village. And right now, the population of the village is about 200 some. And we have, out of the village, we have about 2 PhDs. And then 1 on the way, 3.
Yeah.
And then we have about 15 people that are actually beyond the bachelor degree. And we have about 40 some beyond high school. So it is, it is a well-educated village. Now, this is not unusual in Iran. There are a lot of villages, a lot of actually educated people. I went to a religious school when I was at the age of 7, and it wasn't in the village. It was in another village, west of this village. This village, the name of the village is Rejnook.
How do you spell that?
Rejnook, Rejnook. And this was part of another, actually bigger village, which is called Durosh, which that's the place that I went to school to.
Okay.
And Durosh
you have to spell those things.
Right. Durosh is this was actually Durosh is a very old village, and it was one of the important Zoroastrian temples. Out of the 7 big fire temples, Durosh was one of them that had the temple.
Durosh is D-O...
Doroksh, Durosh. But the village that I went to for the religious school to study Quran, because at that time it was a tradition that the Muslim, they were sending their children to study Quran. This was to the west of the of our village. This wasn't the Rosh, it was another village that is studied Quran. Then the second year, again in our own village, I went to this religious school and started reading, not writing but reading mainly, a lot of religious books. And then I went to the Rosh, which is a village to the east of us, and that's about 3 or 4 kilometers. So I went and attended the school, elementary school at the time, and the name of this school was actually after the great king Darius. Okay. So Darius, the school is Darius Elementary School, and this was a new school, was actually with all the amenities as far as the health was concerned, the window size, the light, and the podium for the teachers, and the blackboard on the wall, actually part of the wall. And so
it's spelled Darius.
Darius is of course the anglicized is Darius or Darius, D-A-R-I-U-S, and then what we say D-A-R-I-U-S-H, Darius, and that was the harmony of the great king. And I attended the third grade. I started because I could read. I attended the third grade, and after that, I finished my third year, fourth year, and fifth and sixth year. And so I used to go every day. I was the first student in the school to go. To walk about 3 or 4 kilometers, and then of course the mountain area, and especially during the winter was pretty harsh, very, very cold. I was the first student in the school, the last student to come out. I always wanted to be in the school. And even during the Friday, which is the holiday of the Muslim, which the school was closed, I was always thinking why we should have Friday, we shouldn't have the school. So I was interested in studying. And at the school, I was in charge of reading the religious praying at the beginning in front of the school, as well as reading the national anthem. And then any time that there was somebody supervisor from the neighboring city, Birjan, which is actually this this area was part of the city, Birjan, the city of about 150,000.
How do you spell that?
Birjan is B-I-R-J-A-N-D, Birjan. And this is a city which is in the eastern part of Iran, and we have about 60 miles or 70 miles, I should say, toward the east of, toward the west of Afghanistan. And that's part of the province of Khorasan in Iran. And Khorasan is K-H-O-R-A-S-S-A-N, Khorasan, province of Khorasan. That's a very old, province was actually the new, or the today's language, today's Farsi actually originated in this part after the attack, after the Arab conquest. So, and I was the top of the school, graduated, and then my father didn't somehow, he didn't have the means to send me to further my study, but anyway, through the, the persuasion of my teachers, they asked him that you have to send him, and so I went actually late to Birjan to attend high school. I was about 3 months late to attend high school, but because of my background, they accepted me. I started high school there. In high school, I finished the 3 years of high school. Then I went to teachers college, not teachers college, I should say, normal school. Yeah. So I wanted to become a teacher for elementary school. And so with those 2 years that I went to normal school, we had the all the normal, let's say, classes, as well as we had education and so on, and then teaching, practical training. And this, at the school, at the elementary school, a normal school, and high school, we had some of the brightest teachers. I remember that most of my teachers were they had bachelor's. So we had good teaching, experts as far as teaching was concerned. And then in high school, at the normal school, I was among the top 2 students. And usually, according to the regulations that they had, they were sending off the 2 top students to go and further their studies.
Oh, okay.
And actually, right now, the top student that was with me, right now he's a professor at Michigan State University, a very famous mathematician, and he's teaching there. Then I attended the 6th grade of, well, I should say that during the time that I was in Ijan studying, I was living with my aunt, which had, at that time, the 3 children, and we were living actually in a very, what you call very meager 2-room unit in part of a house that we rented. And so so I had to study when all these children were around, and there was quite a bit of uproar.
You learned to concentrate.
That's right. And then the concentration was, that's true, the concentration was that when I was reading, if somebody would come to the room, I wouldn't notice who had come or who had gone, or I would go out and study. The concentration was quite a bit, because at the end of, let's say, if I went out to study generally history or whatever in the yard, which was generally cold, at the end I would notice that my hands are completely crumpled. I wouldn't have noticed because of the concentration. But anyway, I couldn't have done it without the concentration that I had. And so the 6th grade of high school, I went to university. I went to high school in the city of Mashhad, which is part of the capital city of the province of Khorasan. And this is Mashhad, is spelled as Mashhad. That's the biggest city.
Right.
And in that school, I became the top student. I was studying. I went to the branch of high school. They had 3 branches. One was mathematics, one was literature, and one was natural science, like biology, and chemistry. I went to the natural science.
Oh, okay.
And we had 64 students in high school, and I was the top student there, and my average was about my average was 17 out of 20, and the next student was 15.
Oh.
So it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then after that, the year that I spent in Mashhad, I went to Tehran to Teachers College. In order to go to Teachers College in Tehran, I had to do an exam, an entrance exam, which was a national entrance exam.
Yeah.
And I was interested in chemistry. Well, originally I was interested in physics, but I changed my mind within 10 days before the exam, and so I went to chemistry.
Yeah.
And I was accepted in the Faculty of Science for the chemistry, Faculty of Science at University of Tehran. Then after that, we had another entrance exam for the Teachers College. Out of these, then I think I was number 2 in the Teachers College. We were about 17 students for the Teachers College. And then we had I was staying in a dormitory, which was, actually the dormitory was part of the structure of the Second World War. The American forces that they were during the Second World War in Iran. And of course, I grew up during the Second World War, and I saw devastation, famine, because of the occupation of Iran. Although Iran declared their neutrality, that the British and especially Russian, they occupied, and then we had also the American forces. And so the structures was remaining the northern part of Iran. These were actually where the American soldiers, they had their, their residence there. And so we were living in these sorts of like beehive, little cells. And it was good. It was a nice, a nice community as far as the community of the students. So I was living there and studying, and then studying in Teachers College. I was a top student in the Teachers College, and then according to the laws that we had, the regulation we had, the top students, they were sent abroad to study, and then come back and teach. And so on. So I was a government student, the Iranian government student, in 1960. I graduated from Teachers College in 1958. But then I taught at the same Teachers College for 2 years. I was a laboratory instructor and also a teacher there for 2 years until I came to the United States in 1960. And I attended the University of Michigan with a number of other students who studied, went to the English Institute, University of Michigan, with a number of other foreign students from all over the world. We had about 200 some students. And we studied, for 2 months we studied English. And then I was supposed to go to University of Illinois, but it was too cold. University of Illinois. I had admission from University of Illinois and Iowa. Yeah, Champaign.
University of Illinois.
University in Champaign.
Okay.
So I went there, and it was too cold. So I decided to go to IU. And
is that right?
Yeah.
You thought it was too cold in Champaign. IU's just as cold as Champaign.
Well, Champaign is a little bit cold, and it's windy too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to. So in February of 1961, I attended IU. I was late, about four days late. I attended school. And then while I was at IU from, let's say, 1961, I worked in chemistry, and I did in organic chemistry, and I did my PhD under the supervision of Professor Marvin Carman.
Is that C-A-R?
C-A-R-N-A-C-K, Marvin Carman. And he is, up to date, he is, I think, over 90-some years old. He's like a father. He always has been, and I think at least he's telling me that he's very proud of me among his students. Because I went toward a teaching that he really admired, because he was interested. A lot of other of his students went to industry And so still he's alive. I think that he's living in Bloomington. Sometimes we go to visit. He knows Nancy pretty well, our children. And so I did my thesis underhand. And at that time, I think that studying graduate studies or studying graduate school at that time was pretty tough. It was, first of all, some of the brightest people would go to graduate school, especially in science, because this was after the era of Sputnik and Kennedy, President Kennedy declaration that we had to go to the moon. And then a lot of bright people were actually studying science. And that still, the competition was such that about half of the entrant students actually failed. They had to leave the school because of the demand on the cumulative examination and so on. And I graduated from IU in 1965. And I was looking, rather than going to Iran, I was going to see whether I can have some sort of practical training and, going to see whether I can stay here for about 1 or 2 years, have some practical training. And the first school that I want to go was Boston.
Really?
I applied here, but I didn't somehow. They didn't need people, or at that time the policy was different. But anyway, then I applied to some of the schools in Wisconsin. Anyway, at the same time I was applying to industry. And in 1965, I went to Monsanto Company, which was a laboratory in the West Virginia area, in Charleston, West Virginia. And there I started working on some research on the additive of the vulcanization of rubber, in other words, tire making. And so to make tire, you have to have the natural rubber or the synthetic rubber, and then you have to add, say, carbon black. That's why the tires are black.
Right.
And then you have to use some other additives in order to cure it and vulcanize it.
Right.
And I actually, I made a compound which was actually commercialized. Later on, in 4 years, it was commercialized, and it was actually, we had a patent, and the commercialization of it had at that time about 1,000% more activity than the commercial. And we can make it, the commercial, let's say, compound, the commercial material was about $1.40 per pound, and we could make this one with 56 cents. And so that was, and then Monsanto built a big plant to produce a compound. So in 1960, so from 1965 to 67, I was at Monsanto company. And I think that research was quite successful. Then, while I was at IU, I met Nancy. I met my wife, Nancy. She was an undergraduate, and actually a good friend of one of my friends. And she, a friend of mine who was a girl studying Iranian girl, introduced Nancy and I. And so that's how we started dating. And then Nancy got, she finished her bachelor's degree in 3 years. And then she went to University of Virginia to get her master's degree. And then by 1967, when I was toward the end of my work, we got married. And then I went to 1967, I went to Iran, and then Nancy joined me in 1968, about 6 months later. And I started in Shiraz University, at that time was Pahlavi University. The reason I went there, I did not want to go to the old University of Tehran or Teachers College, because they had the French type of, let's say, hierarchy, where you had a professor that you had to work under him, and usually, they wouldn't give you a leeway. They wouldn't let you do what was necessary. So I decided that I'm not going to go to Iran unless I find a place I can work properly. And this opportunity actually came with the establishment of Pahlavi University under it was one of the, let's say, a university that was actually supported by the Shah, and that's why it has the Pahlavi name on it. And it was completely with it was established according to the rules and bylaws of the University of Pennsylvania. So they had the exchange program, University of Pennsylvania, and University of Pennsylvania wrote all the committees, the bylaws, and everything. And everything was taught in English. And so the texts were in English and everything. And so I went there, and that was a very good move, and we stayed from 1967 until 1980, which was we trained a lot of students, we had a lot of programs, we introduced a lot of new texts to the chemistry, we wrote a curriculum, a chemistry curriculum, then we established a master's program. The student who got his master's from under me was the first master's from Pahlavi University graduate. So he was the first one graduate.
How do you spell Pahlavi?
Pahlavi is P-A-H-L-A-V-I, Pahlavi. So this was actually the dynasty, the Shah and Pahlavi. We had a good, the university was a great university. When Nancy came, you were mentioning about Nancy. No, Nancy knows quite a bit of medicine.
Yeah, no.
Although she's not
I'm aware of that.
Actually she has a lot of publication with medical doctors.
Right.
Everybody wanted to be collaborate with Nancy. So she had these papers with different professors at Pahlavi University, medical school professor. And she actually, although she had a master's degree at that time, later on she went to Harvard and got her PhD for a Doctor of Science from the School of Public Health. But although she had a master's degree, within a few years she became an assistant professor because of again, the rule and regulation in the Pennsylvania established. And then in between 1960 when we were living in Shiraz, 1967 to 1980, this span of time, Nancy was teaching in the School of Medicine, and then I was teaching in the School of Arts and Science. I was the dean of the students, so I had to do a lot with the students, helping the students, and also as far as running the affairs of the students.
Right.
Later on, just after the revolution, I became the dean of College of Arts and Sciences, which was a terrible time, and I had to do it. But I think I did. I did. I did the job as to quote one of my friends, with a very fine politics. And then we had both three children. They're all born in Shiraz. Heidi, 1969. She was born in 1969, and Michael in 1971. And then we had the latest one, the young one, in 1979. Just during the hostage crisis.
Right.
He was born October 1979, and you know that the hostages were taken in Iran in November of 1979. And so Heidi now is professor at Harvard. Michael is ophthalmologist in Zionsville. Heidi went to Harvard Medical School, and then she did her residency there. And then Michael went to Indiana University Medical School, and then he did the residency at Emeritus, and now he's an ophthalmologist practicing. He has his clinic in Zionsville, Indiana. And Kayvon is still he's deciding what he wants to do. I think that he wants to attend probably an EA, the University of Chicago.
How do you spell Kayvon's name?
Kayvon is Kavon.
Right.
Yeah, that's the name of a store. I think it's the name of a starter in Farsi. And so we had our family, and then we helped my family also. My sister and my brother, they were living with us. They went to school, and in between, in 1971, I went to University of Pennsylvania as a postdoctoral fellow, and worked with Professor Cava, C-A-V-A, famous organic chemist. So from 1971, 72, then another sabbatical. Every 4 years we had sabbatical. Another.
Good deal.
Yeah, it was good. So 12 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was good. And established that way. They were very wise people. Arab University was one of the, just before the revolution, we had a rate of 1.5 papers, articles published by faculty yearly, in well-known. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty good. It still is. They publish it. It still is a good school. And then we had, then in 1976, I went for a year. I went to Harvard and worked with Professor Corey, E.J. Corey, who was a Nobel Prize laureate. And then after the revolution, we stayed about a year after the revolution, and then they closed down the university, because all those students that before the revolution they were asking for freedom and liberty and take care of their affairs, all of a sudden after the revolution they became menace to the regime. So they closed down the university. The university was closed for about 3 years. And so we decided there's no reason to stay in Iran. Let's come to the United States and see what we can do, because half of the family is here. Nancy's parents, they were here, and they were kind enough to help us quite a bit. And so we came in after the revolution, when the university got closed. We came to Florida, where they were living, and then they took care of the children, they said. And Nancy went to Harvard studying, and then I went to Boston College. And Boston College, I did some research with Professor Ross Kelly, there, a famous organic chemist, and also I did teaching. And then And then in 1982, I was applying to different places for jobs. I had an offer, but it was a temporary offer from the University of Pennsylvania, a 3 years offer. But always I wanted to come to Indiana because Indiana was always, when I came here, I thought that probably if you look at the culture in the Midwest, probably this is the roots of the greatness of the American culture, or the American who we are.
The heart of the heart of the
heart,
country.
yes. And always I considered that the people were nice. The people, they weren't too much on one way or another. They were the middle ground. And I decided at the time that I was at the Indiana University, that I want to live in any other place except Iran will be Indiana.
Oh.
And I wound up actually at Ball State that originally I wanted to come.
Okay.
So, and then in 1982 we came. Nancy finished her degree in 1983, and she got also the offer from biology department. And at Ball State, I started, just having the desire to teach. I started, actually, as you're aware of, I took a lot of students, undergraduates, and do research with me.
Right.
Fortunately, I had a project which was funded, it was a project funded by the National Institute of Health, American Cancer Society. So I had enough money to hire postdoctoral fellow as well as, some of the students that they were interested. So always I had during these, from 1982, let's say all the way to before we retired in 2002, I had, my group was in the range of between 7 to 10 people. Research group. And I had a lot of them. Right now I have, I think, over 100 students that they came out from my lab. And they're all successful, whether they went to Lilly or they went to other industries, or they went to medical school or professional school, PhD school. They have been quite successful. And I actually, that's one of my great accomplishments. I can consider that, I have helped quite a number of these people to be successful, and they are grateful. And I'm sure that places like Lilly, they appreciate what we have done, because you can see that they help us, help us for research and so on. And they're always proud of the students. Some of the students that they came from old, actually undergraduate programs, and now they are living in, they're working at Lilly. I know they're on par of PhD. In other words, they get salaries like PhD, promoted to their PhDs now. There are 2 or 3 of them.
Is it fair to say that if the revolution in Iran had not occurred, that you might have stayed there for the rest of your career?
Actually, what we decided with Nancy and I, we decided, because I have been working in a way from 1955, because when I entered 1955, I entered Teachers College.
Right.
That was part of, actually, was counted as part of employment.
Okay.
And after 30 years, in 1985, I could have been,
Right.
And so our decision was that since half family was in the, in the States, we were going to actually probably come certain number of months stay in the United States, and certain number of months be in Iran. I would have stayed. Okay. I would have stayed there. Still right now, every year we go. And I know we have an apartment in Shiraz, which, we go, and probably every year we intend to stay for about 2 months or so, especially during the month, which is very cold.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But the way I look at saying, I think that the scientists do not belong to just one society or another. Right. The more opportunity is for a scientist, they should do their work, and they should train. And I think that I don't consider that really, I regret as much, although it would have been better if I stayed there and helped the Iranians. Right. But as a whole, I think that whatever help I have given to a lot of young students, whether Americans, I have had quite a number of Iranian students that have come from my
Right.
lab here. I have helped over about 25 students to come to Ball State, and I would like to thank the administration for allowing, and then all the department for allowing this student to come. Of course, they have been some of the brightest students
Sure.
that we have had, very accomplished. But I have had, I have had a lot of, helped a lot of students.
But is it fair to say then that your view of the scientist is that the scientist is an international teacher-scholar who has an obligation to not only teach, but also to further the pursuit of knowledge by passing this on to your students, which is to say the next generation of people who might go on to do
Sure.
scholarly work?
Well, it's sort of, it is always my intention not only to pass whatever experience I have in,
Right.
in science. Of course, I should say that some of the problems that we have in the world is due to the ignorance and due to the on part of a lot of people that we don't know enough science.
Yes.
Because if we know enough science, then we can cling on science and facts and rational behavior rather than. So that's part of my intention. Definitely, you want to because if we didn't pursue and if we didn't increase the amount of knowledge in science, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
As far as the discoveries that we have all over. And then at the same time, I think as a teacher also, you want to talk to your students to just give them some sort of meaning to life also, social behavior.
Oh, sure.
And always I try to, to preach. Although some people, they say, I may preach, but then I think it's good with the experience that you had. You ought to do it. So, because a lot of time.
Let me ask you some questions about the university during the time you were here. I mean, you came here in the 1980s, and as you look back on the period from the point where you accepted the faculty position in chemistry to the time you retired in 2002, in what important ways do you think Ball State changed during that time?
When I came in 1982, I'm not going to mention a certain, let's say, quotation.
Right.
But generally speaking, I think that the university, under the leadership of Dr. Warren and you, had tremendous start. I think that the university, as far as the outlook of the university, the beautification, the buildings, the sidewalks, the landscaping, as well as in academic work, it has jumped quite a bit. And it has actually improved fantastically. And this gives you a sense of, rather than being in a deteriorating type of condition, you always feel good about it. And I think that the community as a whole, I know for a fact, as far as I'm concerned and Nancy is concerned, we always had the support, and we always have been appreciated. Now, always you can say there's certain, minor things that you can always gloss over, but I have been in several, several occasions that have been actually talking, appreciated the work by you or by Warden, President Warden, and I think that the university during this year, as far as the student is concerned, accomplishment of the students, the quality of the students, it has actually it has improved tremendously. And
So you think the quality of students got better during the time?
Yes, yes, because right now you have some of the finest students compared to,
How about the chemistry department?
Chemistry department has been fantastic. Chemistry department, although the chemistry department always has been, a place where a lot of the teaching has been very important, research has been very important, and the professor always, cares for teaching and for helping the students, and they have always been backward to help the students.
Right.
but it has actually improved tremendously. And with starting at the time I came with the storehouse Rouge, it was a nice place to work for. We had the summer research program, which was one of the unique programs, and then coming with Len Souza was fantastic, and now Bob Morris is fantastic. He is a very positive, very active individual, and I think that we have a lot of improvement. Of course, we had a lot of support also from the college, as far as the equipment is concerned, as far as the technicians are concerned.
Especially equipment as far as you're concerned.
Yes, yes. we had some of the instruments that really need for research.
How well I remember the cost of the things that you had to have for your research, Dr. Behforouz.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what you're really telling me is that the changes that occurred at Ball State during your career, your long and distinguished career, you view these changes as very positive, not negative.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned several of the people along the way, both in this country and in your native country, who had a special influence on you. Were there any people during your career at Ball State, in your department or the college, who had a particular influence on your career?
At Ball State, I should say yes. My colleagues at the chemistry department, and I think that I should mention two of them who have been very helpful and very inspired. One is Len Souza, who has been always supportive, and the rest of them, and also another one, the season Kruger. Kruger was
Terry Kruger.
Fantastic person.
Yeah.
He was always positive and supportive of me.
He also had a nice motorcycle.
That's right.
Yeah, he was a really interesting fellow.
And then he was. But as far as the community is concerned, we really like also the whole thing. As I said, Indiana is one of my favorite places, and especially Muncie, with it is middle town.
Yeah.
And you can, for the bringing up your children, having a family. It is a relatively religious city, which is good, which is not, it's not a far right or it's a good community, and we have been blessed with it.
Well, let me ask you a bit about that, because are there areas of Muncie as a community that you got involved in a specific way? When we talk about the town and the gown, one of the things I'm trying to get at in my study is that Ball State faculty tend to become very active in some areas of the community. Right. And I've been asking each of the people participating in my project, which areas were they particularly involved in, either while they were faculty or even perhaps now in retirement?
Well, we are involved. We go with the some of the areas that we are involved. My family is not the Unitarian University Church, right. And in this university, Unitarian University Church, generally we are involved in there are quite a bit of community work, and we have been involved. Okay. Now, I should say that probably we haven't been involved, to the extent that we wanted to. Right. But we have been involved in the, helping, whatever the drives has been to help, to giving a helping hand to the needy. And then I have been involved. Usually, the Muncie Mission. I usually buy food for, or the Odd Fellow Society. I help too. Yeah. So I have been helping. Okay. But as far as any specific, let's say, like little sister, what do you call it, brother, sister, or that type of
big brothers, big
sisters. Yeah. We haven't been. Hopefully, we'll be right now that we are retired. Probably, we may get involved. But one of the things with the dual culture is that you run out of time. because you want to have your own culture and your own friends from the other side.
Yeah.
And so we're involved quite a bit with the cultural aspect
Right.
of that. We are
Right.
part of the poetry night, in Indiana with the Persian friends.
Right.
And then we have Persian friends as well as we have American friends.
Right.
And so and you cannot mix the two because they
Yeah.
don't understand. Well, I shouldn't say they don't understand because the Persian
Yeah.
want to talk Farsi when they're together, and the American friends, of course, they want to
Yeah.
talk English. And so, but anyway, so quite a bit of time
Yeah.
is spent on both sides of the.
Okay.
But I should mention that I have always looked at you and Dr. Worthen as also my inspiration,
Oh, that's
because
kind.
you always have supported. It's so important that somebody realizes that, because I have the experience with certain, let's say, certain president of university who probably would not acknowledge whether you're distinguished or,
You're right. Yeah.
But some people that even if they retire, like John Worthen,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether he's
Right.
retired.
Right.
Still, whenever he sees me, he
Oh,
says,
sure.
"How is your Levendemeister?"
Yeah.
And that shows care rather than whether he is part
Yeah.
of you or him.
Yeah.
You feel you're part of the university, and you will be.
Well, I think, that's kind of you to say, and I would respond by saying, for the official record on our tape, that my philosophy of being a provost in particular is you find good faculty and do everything you can to help them be better.
Right. Right.
And so when you find someone like you who has a really terrific ability to
Right.
be an outstanding teacher scholar, then what you try to do is to find the resources to help you be even better. So,
Yeah.
let me switch this a little bit and ask you, I guess, one of the tough questions that I've been asking all of the faculty who participated in my project. And that is that during your career, do you think that the faculty had enough of a voice in the decision-making process about things that went on at the university?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I have to elaborate on that. It is one thing to expect that you want to participate.
Right.
And another thing is how you're going to participate and how your participation or your input is going to go in a very organized fashion,
Okay.
disciplined fashion, and help
Right.
the organization.
Okay.
So always I have this qualm, politically or whatever it is, that on the outside you may say things that, well, this needs to be done. But when you go inside, then you see that whatever, it is done, it is with good intention. And although the faculty hasn't been involved, I'm not so sure that if the faculty were involved, Ball State would have gone with it.
Okay.
Probably,
Yeah.
although it is nice to sometimes, to give the voice of the faculty, but then at the same time, you don't want to have an organization where it's run by, let's say, a lot of voices and a number of people that they are not really in tune with the difficulties.
Okay.
And so that hasn't bothered me really, although, always you say that, well, we have a Senate that really we haven't had, or the AFD, we haven't had really a lot of.
Well, let me pick up on
voice.
that. Do you think that we, the faculty, would have been better served if there had been a faculty senate rather than a university senate, which included administrators and students? That there would have been an opportunity for the faculty to have a voice in a senate that was just the faculty.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, because always, I was part of a Senate myself in Pahlavi University. I was a member of the, but that was a sort of what you call we called the University Senate. But University Senate, I think we were more powerful.
Right.
I was representing the School of Science. That was an elected.
Right.
But then, in that Senate, university chancellor was there, and then all the deans.
Right.
But we sort of worked as a unit, and whatever the decision was, they acted on.
Oh, okay.
So it was. It
wasn't just advisory.
No, it wasn't advisory.
Right.
At one time, there was a student that actually I wanted to discipline because I was in the discipline committee, and this student cheated in the exam. I wanted to expel him. It went all the way to the Senate, and I was at the Senate. And then they wanted to sort of say, well, we shouldn't punish him and expel him.
Right.
And I wanted him to this student. And the final decision at the Senate was that this student should be expelled.
Oh, okay.
And there was another one, I won
Yeah.
single-handedly.
Yeah.
And then I helped the students
Yeah.
in a way. The student went and worked with Nancy for a year,
Oh.
and they came back and thanked me.
Yeah.
They said, you were the only one who could stand in front of my father. Nobody else in the country could actually accept that.
Yeah.
And
So that's a powerful
That's
Senate.
a powerful Senate.
Yeah.
Now, if a number of faculty, they get together and come to a certain resolution, if this resolution is not abide by, I mean, we don't have that mechanism,
Right.
then there will be more conflicts. I think that the Senate probably, as it is, at least the people can go and see the president, the provost, everybody is
Right.
in Senate.
Yeah.
They can understand each other. Probably will be more,
Yeah. In some ways,
Therefore.
it's a little more democratic.
right,
Small d, democratic.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. My last question you kind of answered, but I want to pose it a bit more specifically, and that is to ask you to comment on the relationship between the university and the community. Do you see this as something that's been positive? Is it something that needs to be carefully examined, needs to be improved? You know what I'm talking about
Right.
when I talk about the town versus the gown. That
Right.
Sometimes there are difficulties between the community and the university. And I just wonder, in your career, how you see this relationship between the town and the gown.
I think that this is an area that we need improvement. I don't think that university being, let's say, in this is the highest employee,
Right.
unit.
Yeah, us in Cardinal Health System.
Right. And then I think that as a whole, especially being the center of a teachers' college, we haven't done our job as far as the communities.
All right.
I think we should be more involved.
Okay.
Especially, we should be, all the departments should be involved in the high school and the elementary school. Somehow we should go and talk,
Right.
give presentation, give a lot of, I'm a proponent of having a lot of summer, refreshing course for
Right.
all of the
Yeah.
teachers to come, and we should spend quite a bit of time on that type of, to train some of the teachers to give them refreshing courses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And do this
Yeah.
program. And the only department that I know in science is physics, practically, and to certain extent biology. But I try to have this constituted in chemistry department, and it didn't. I think it is so important because you want to have these, that happen. And then also, we get too involved with our, personal. I mean, I shouldn't say personal. I should say personal and professional,
Right.
rather than looking beyond in the community and see what type of help we can give.
So you think that the university should be more involved in outreach
Right,
activities?
right,
Okay. Well, I like your idea of doing more with elementary and high schools,
right,
especially in areas like chemistry.
right. But right now we are separated.
Yeah.
Right now we don't know. Even we are separated from birds.
Yeah.
We should be involved. I tried to be involved in the birds, chemistry thing, but I wasn't successful because they were, tried to sort of teach the teacher a little bit how to teach chemistry, that it was the politics or it didn't allow it.
So let me try another angle on that. John Worthen and I once did a study by asking all the department heads and the deans to give us a list of all the Ball State faculty who were involved in community activities. And I'm telling you, that list was over 25 pages long. I say that because I think often the people in the community don't really understand, nor do they appreciate how much Ball State does for the community. I'm not saying Ball State couldn't do more.
Right.
What I'm saying is that we're often seen as out here in this elite ivory tower in the northwest part of Muncie, and that we should be doing more for the community.
Right.
But you've identified some areas where we certainly could do more.
Yeah. That's the area. But I think that Ball State, I know that a lot of a lot of our friends through different organizations they help, whether it's United Way, whether there are churches, whether there are committees, whether there is a hospital.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of, but I think in the area of sort of being more involved, especially since we have a root of a teachers college, being involved with the education problem is more.
Well, those are all the questions I have, but with all of my interviewees, I give them an opportunity to add anything that I might not have covered. So this is your time. If you wish to add anything to our interview, please feel free to do so.
Well, I think that the overall, since we were uprooted from Iran after the revolution, the experience that, and also the work and the support that we have had, Nancy and I both and our family, it couldn't have been better. So overall, I think that we have been professionally and socially, we have been supporting the community as well as the Ball State. And I think that the institution, Ball State institution, with the type of people and leadership that it has, I think it will be as a fine institution, and our experience has been quite positive as far as the trying to being involved in the community. I think that we Nancy and I think we will be since we are retired, although still we are doing our research, we are involved in the but we will try to sort of be more involved in the community that has given us quite a bit of support.
Well, I know that Joy and I feel the same way. When you have more time, you want to give some of it back.
Right.
Well, thank you very much for participating in my study. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.